Coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs. Hey, welcome in. It's the Arrowhead Addict Chiefs pregame show. Patrick Allen here with Matt Connor and Joe Summers, going to lead you right up to kickoff, where the Kansas City Chiefs looking to get back in the win column in this one after a frustrating Kelsey and Chris Jones-less loss last Thursday. But we got a great show for you, and we want some interaction from you all. So make sure you hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Matt Connor, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I feel a little out of place. I'm wearing like a Tottenham Spurs hat. Honestly, I can only wear ketchup and mustard so many days of the week. I'm sorry. I'm out of all red and yellow today. They're all in the laundry, so it's a road game.
You need more stuff. That's what you need. You need more stuff.
I do. Maybe we need some cool giveaways or something.
Yeah, you should head over to Homage, by the way. Check out this. I got this from. Is this not fresh?
Nice. That is pretty
good.
Clean.
Dude, that's like
that.
Old school.
Right.
I love it.
They have a whole series of these for all the different teams. Yeah, really fantastic. Reminds me of growing up in the 90s. And these were like big, the crest with like the college. You know, you guys remember. Totally fantastic. Joe, how about you, man? How's your weekend going?
I'm doing lovely. My laundry did fortunately have a little bit of red in it. Got to rock my guy, Kelsey. I'm pumped to see the Chiefs at what I imagine is a lot closer to full strength than we did last week. I mean, this was one of the matchups that I had circled at the very beginning. It was the game that I picked to be the AFC Championship game. So I think that we're in for an awesome game. And win or lose, it'll just be nice to have everybody out on the field. And do got to say happy birthday to my man Patrick Mahomes, 28 today. Woo. If you think he's not putting up at least 1 point for every year of his life, we're getting 28 plus today. I'm pumped. Happy birthday to you, Patrick. I know you're watching.
How good does it make you guys feel to know that Patrick Mahomes just turned 28 today and has already won 2 Super Bowls? I mean, that is good.
Amazing.
News.
Crazy.
Amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm 28 and I've accomplished much less in my life. So I'm glad that combined we've got 2.
All right, let's not start throwing ages around here. All right, trying bragging in front of Connor and I. That's not cool.
I'm 29. I have no. Yeah, let's get into it. Chiefs.
Yeah, let's do it. Listen, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. Let's get more Chiefs fans in here. We'll be back at halftime as well, and after the game for the Chiefs post-game show. Sterling Holmes will be joining us after the game, as will our old pal Matt Verderam. So make sure you're here with us, and of course, make sure you're reading ArrowheadAddict.com throughout the game and after, where Matt Connor will be providing you with great Chiefs coverage. So let's kick it off here. The Chiefs handled the Jaguars pretty easily last year. Obviously, not the same Chiefs team, not the same Jaguars team. I'm not saying they annihilated them or anything, but in both of those games, in the regular season, pretty comfortable win for the Chiefs. They were way ahead. And then in the playoffs, the same thing was kind of happening before Patrick hurt his ankle, and they had to struggle a little bit there to grind it out. Still won. How worried are you guys about this Jaguars team? Obviously, the big addition for them was Calvin Ridley, who looked spectacular last week. The other receivers, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, those are quality NFL receivers. Adding a guy like Ridley kind of gives them that extra gear on offense for Trevor Lawrence that they didn't have last year. ETN looking dangerous as well. Matt Connor, are you worried about these guys attacking this Chiefs defense?
Yeah, not at all. Not even remotely at all. And look, I'm on record. I think Trevor Lawrence, again, I'll say it. I think Trevor Lawrence at the end of the season is going to be in the trio of best NFL quarterbacks out there, period. I don't know who he knocks off. Maybe Josh Allen, who I was stupid enough to trade up for in our fantasy league, whatever, what have you. Look, they've got the goods at the right position. That makes the Jags an automatic threat to anybody when you have that guy in place. But the Chiefs have the best guy. And I just still, when I'm looking at the Jags roster, the depth is not there. The overall excellence is not there. The Chiefs have 3 of the NFL's top 10 players. You've got a squad full of young guys who just won the Super Bowl. The Jags just aren't there. They have some real roster issues still. You mentioned Ridley as the improvement, but other than that, it was not a busy offseason with tons of great new additions. It was, yeah. So the difference will be, and I think this is what's going to be like, if there's something for us to really watch, it's that Doug Peterson is now in his second year. Lawrence is now in this system for another year. It's about how much growth is this core. They're writing this core and they've added Ridley to it. How much greater can they be? We know in Kansas City how good it is to have that coaching core with the quarterback that can carry you. We'll see what the Peterson Lawrence core is going to bring early on, having a year together already. Like, that's the story, but I'm not remotely worried. Are you guys worried?
I mean, look, on one hand, I'm always worried when the Chiefs are going up against a top flight quarterback, which I agree with you, Matt. I believe Lawrence is. Whenever you have one of those guys, like a Trevor Lawrence, a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen in the past, those guys can tilt things for you in your favor. We watched Patrick Mahomes take less than stellar defenses, a less than stellar wide receiver core to championships. So that could happen at any time. And if you let the game stay close, I think that's the big thing that the Chiefs should be concerned about, is letting the Jags hang around. If the Chiefs have the opportunity to get in the lead or they get a turnover, they need a touchdown. They don't need a field goal, because a guy like Lawrence on any one play could possibly beat you and keep things close. But remember, this is a Jaguars team that last week, with like 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, was losing to the Indianapolis Colts, which is not a bad team, but they were starting a rookie quarterback in his first ever game. They could not run the ball at all in that game, and yet it was still a game. So, yeah, just like the Chiefs last week, I think the Jaguars were going through some early season growing pains as well. What about you, Joe? Are you worried about this Jaguars offense?
Honestly, yeah. I think this is a game we absolutely could lose. I look at it as a top 3 most difficult game on our schedule, if that low. Like, wow. This is a really good team. I think the Jags are great. And Doug Peterson's familiarity with Andy Reid and the coaching staff, I think they match up well with us when they're on offense. The question is their defense. And Josh Allen, not the quarterback, but the defensive end, had an amazing game last week. I think he had 3 sacks. He's a top draft pick, young guy. If their pass rush can get to Mahomes, then the Jags absolutely could win this game. But that doesn't necessarily worry me, because I'm going into it thinking that the Jags are a top 3 team in the conference. So if we lose on the road to a top 3 team in the conference, like, I'm not chicken littling. The sky is not falling. You just lost to a good team. On the other hand, it's Mahomes' birthday. This is the team that hurt his ankle last year. Kelsey's back. Chris Jones is back. Vibes are high for this Chiefs team right now. So I'm coming in believing that we're going to win. But if we lose a close one, I won't be stunned, and I won't come away saying, oh, no, the season's over, because that's a really damn good football team over there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you look at this matchup, if you're a Jaguars fan, I think you're kind of bummed that the Chiefs didn't win that game against Detroit last week, because I think that would have set you up better for a Chiefs team that might have their guard down a little bit coming into this one. It's not that just because the Chiefs lost, they're just guaranteed to win the next game. But like, go back and look at history. They don't lose 2 in a row with Patrick Mahomes, hardly ever. It's only happened a couple of times.
13-3 after a loss.
There you go. And count Joe to bring the stats. And the other thing is that they got a little bit of a reality check. I talked about this on the Thursday show. They got a little bit of a reality check there against that Lions team. They had a lot of young guys walk in last year, rookies, win a Super Bowl. You're coming out of that all off. It was the off season of the Chiefs, Travis Kelce and documentaries and hosting the draft and clapping back and getting their rings and all that stuff. And then they come into this game not at full strength against the Lions, and a lack of focus and execution costs them a win. That's a good Lions team. And if a couple passes got caught, the Chiefs probably still win. And it was a pretty putrid offensive performance for them all around. So when you look at that and you say, okay, what silver linings? No loss is good, but for a veteran Chiefs team with Andy Reid, veteran coaching staff, Patrick Mahomes, all that, to lose that game coming into this one against Jacksonville, at the very least, you can expect that they're really going to make sure they're minding their P's and Q's, that they're really focused, that they're concentrating, and they're not taking anything lightly. This is a road game against a team that plays in a division that they should win easily, frankly, that they should probably sweep, and could be, after last week, a top contender for the top seed in the AFC. And so this is a big game for both of these teams, just because I think both of them will be there at the end vying for that number 1 seed, and you're going to want that tiebreaker. If you're the Chiefs, hey, you lost a game. That sucks, but at least you lost a game to an NFC opponent early in the year, so that's not going to factor into the tiebreakers most likely with your other AFC rivals. But yeah, I think the Chiefs, this is a game where, like, you do not want to start 0-2. I don't care if you've got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and all that stuff. Like, it's just not good to start 0-2. But then again, the Cincinnati Bengals started 0-2 last year, and they were in the AFC Championship game. So it can happen if you have the right pieces in place. What about on the defensive side of the ball? The Chiefs looked pretty damn good on defense against, I know it was Jared Goff, and they didn't have all of their receivers, but they have a bona fide star in Amon-Ra St. Brown. They had guys making plays out there, and without Chris Jones, the Chiefs did a pretty nice job against that Lions team, only giving up 14 points on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, there was a tip pass and a pick six that the Lions got 7 more. Matt Connor, do you think with the return of Chris Jones, probably going to play somewhere around the 25 to 35 snap range on passing downs? We'll see how he's doing. Do you think this is a top 10 defense in Kansas City, and does that materialize today in this game?
I do, and I think we see the beginnings of that, because I think Jones may play more than we think. They left Keandre Coburn and Neil Farrell among inactives today. So, to me, you're leaving some of your guys out. And I will say this. Last week, Felix Anudike-Uzomah had 3 pressures. George Karlaftis had 3 pressures. The pass rush up front looked decent. Spags did a lot up front to also add pressures like he always does with stunts, blitzes, whatnot. But those guys were sometimes getting double teamed, chip block. With Chris there, they're going to get a lot of one-on-ones. I'm anxious to see what George Karlaftis is going to bring with his body of experience when he's getting one-on-ones, when Felix is getting one-on-ones, when Derek Nottie looked great last week, sliding inside, had some really good snaps, lining up directly. I think Jones is the rising tide that is the tide that raises all ships there. And even more than that, this is like, we've talked about this before. This coaching staff is learning, how do we handle 4 good linebackers? How do we utilize Drew Tranquil? How do we utilize this young secondary that we're still learning? Brian Cook in a starting role, Mike Edwards is the third safety. So it's another game with more experience. It's just every game is going to be that learning curve and getting a little bit better at knowing how to deploy these guys. For all that excitement, remember, learning how to use these guys, that was the problem with the receiver core last week. Andy Reid says, look, part of that's on me, because we're rotating guys in and out like hockey lines.
Yeah.
When you don't know how to use your guys, it's to the detriment of your team. Yeah. But when you learn how to use your guys, it's to the positive effect of your team. And defensively, that's the rising tide for me. And getting Jones in there makes it that much better.
Well, so you bring up the pass rush, and something to keep in mind is that, FAU had those 3 pressures. Karlaftis looked great against a top 5, probably, offensive line in the league in Detroit last week. Jacksonville does not have that. No. So we have a huge opportunity. If that defensive line brings the same, performance to this game, I'm going to feel awesome about it. The key matchup for me to watch is going to be Trent McDuffie on Calvin Ridley, because Calvin Ridley is the addition for Jacksonville's offense, obviously. Trent McDuffie looked awesome last week. If he's going to take the steps towards becoming that all-pro corner that we think that he can, I want to see him shut down Ridley today, limit Christian Kirk, Zay Jones when he's on him. This will be a really tough test for him.
Yeah, and the thing about Chris Jones is that even if he's, and he won't be in like peak form, because he didn't have training camp. That's just there's a whole different, he's in shape, but it's a different ball game going out there and trying to push another 300-pound guy around. But he still has to be accounted for. I don't care if he didn't work out all off season. You line him up there against one guy, that's going to be a problem. So the Jaguars have to account for him. They have to know where he is. He commands a lot of double teams, and he opens things up in a way for other players. And so, you know, if Spags has some corner blitzes ready to go, those types of things, now he can bust some of those out in this game because he knows Chris Jones, if he wants to rush Drew Tranquill. Okay, when I got Chris Jones occupying two guys, I sent Tranquill on a little bit of a delay. That forces an incompletion. That could end a drive right there. So Chris Jones just gives Steve Spagnuolo more tools, more things that he can do. Whereas against the Lions, he probably had to play things a little more conservative than he normally would if he knew he had the big fella out there. By the way, as we're just about 15 minutes from kickoff here, if you're watching this here on YouTube, we've got a great deal. If you want to get a little action on this game, Caesars Sportsbook has a limited time offer. This is really good. You bet 50, you get $250 in bonus bets, and that's ending tonight. So new users can sign up with our code. You got to use our code, ARROWGET, ARROWGET, and redeem the $250 bonus bets after you place your first wager of $50 on any NFL game. So even if your first bet loses, you'll still receive one $50 bet credit each week over the next 5 weeks, so you can keep it going. Make sure to enter our code, ARROWGET, while signing up, and have a bet on Caesars every week for the next 5 weeks. That's our code, ARROWGET. Remember, this offer ends tonight, so make sure to take advantage of it while it's still valid. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 and over, physically present in a legal gambling state. Looking at you, Kansas. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check out the episode description for the full terms of the offer. And of course, bet on the good guys. I mean, this is a chance to bet on the good guys. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs don't lose 2 in a row very often. So check it out. And also, you'll support our podcast, which is massive. You want to see more guests. You want to see more Matt Verderam. When you do things like this, it gives us the flexibility to give you a nice varied show here. All right. So who are your X factors in this one? And let us know in the chat too. I want to hear your X factors for this game as well. Who's the person in this game? And you can pick whoever you want. You can pick an obvious like Mahomes, Kelsey, whatever, or somebody under the radar, like it's going to be L'Jarius Sneed. But we'll start with you, Joe. Who's the guy that you're looking for in this game that if they show out, if they ball out, they're going to help turn the tide for the Chiefs, get a victory?
So other than the obvious, Kelsey, Chris Jones, Kadarius Toney catches passes, other than the obvious ones, there's one offensively and defensively. Offensively, I'm looking at McKinnon. So the Jags gave up the second most receptions to running backs and the second most receiving yards to running backs last season. They were weak in the middle of the field. That's how you attack them. If McKinnon has a big game, and I thought it was really strange how underutilized he was despite being on the field quite a bit last week. If he has a big game and attacks the Jags defense against pass catching running backs, our offense is going to be in good shape. Conversely, if Trent McDuffie has a huge game on Calvin Ridley, we're going to be in great shape. He was the big addition. If we hold him to 60-ish yards or so, then I'm going to feel great about our ability moving forward. And again, I know I said other than the obvious, but the obvious are still there. We need Kelsey to have a big game. The Jags were terrible against tight ends last year as well. We need Chris Jones, and we need Tony, Sky, someone to step up other than who I expect to in McKinnon.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw in the chat Richie James and Drew Tranquill from Joshua Clayton. Interesting pairing there. What do you think, Matt?
For me, it's Jawan Taylor going against his old team. I think this is huge. Picture, for example, if Chris Jones left in free agency for the Bears or something, then coming into this one, you like in the next week's game, which is against the Bears, you would say something like, oh, they practice against each other every week. Now they get to actually take on the other, like it would be Creed Humphrey versus Jones up front. And you'd be thinking, gosh, I don't know who's going to get the best of who after it's two good players going against each other who have that vast amount of experience. Is Josh Allen or Trayvon Walker going to get the best of a tackle that they've gone up against rep after rep after rep in practice? Or is Taylor going to have the edge on knowing these guys' technique and how to stop it, right? So especially when Jawan Taylor may have to make the adjustments this week because, quote, the refs are going to be watching these, like, Matt Verderam was talking about, the refs are going to be watching some of these things. If Taylor has to switch up and think more about what he's doing, and there's a mental processing that has to happen, and it's less instinctual, these pass rushers may have an edge there against a guy they're already familiar with. It's going to be fun to watch that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Can't ignore the storyline here with Jawan Taylor going up against his old team. For me in this one, man, I think I'm probably with Joe on like a sort of sneaky X factor could be Jerick McKinnon. Not used very much in the game plan last week, which I found surprising. But I think the return of Travis Kelce really opens things up for Jerick McKinnon, right? He's going to be playing around in some of the same areas and spaces that Kelce might be coming out of the backfield. And guess where the attention is going to be? It's Travis Kelce. Nobody's worried about, all due respect, Noah Gray running around out there catching passes. So teams are going to be a little bit more confident to go one-on-one with him. Travis Kelce did well against this team last year. I expect that to continue this year. But it doesn't even necessarily, just like with Chris Jones, he doesn't have to have a huge game in this one, Kelce. He just needs to be accounted for and be there and help the Chiefs, a couple of those first downs they needed, right? I need a couple of those first downs. Where's Travis Kelce? He's not there. He's not there to just go find a soft spot in the zone, get a nice, easy completion from Mahomes, settle him down, get the offense into a rhythm. And the other X factor I have in this game is Andy Reid. Andy Reid has got to let Patrick Mahomes and these receivers get into some kind of rhythm. And I know you've got all your toys and you want to roll them out there and you want to test them out. And I'm all for looking for matchups and using guys in certain packages when it makes sense. But I think on the whole, I mean, you saw it. Like, who were the most productive receivers for the Chiefs last week? It was Watson and it was MVS. It was the two guys that Patrick Mahomes had the most familiarity with that were running around out there, and they were the ones who were making big plays for this team when they needed them. I think you got to get Rashee Rice out there on a consistent basis. He had a little bit of a case of the drops in the preseason, but he played really well in that game against the Lions. Like, he didn't get a ton of usage, but he made the most out of it. And what you saw, what that tells me is the targets that he got, even though it wasn't for a ton of yards, was that Mahomes has some trust in this guy. Mahomes sees him out there and goes to him immediately. I think you want to build that up. So I'm looking for MVS, Tony, and Rashee Rice. That's, if I'm in a 3 wide receiver set, that's what I want to see out there. And what do you guys think? First play of the game, going straight to Kadarius Toney?
Yes. Yeah, Tony. And you brought up the Caesars offer earlier. You can get Tony at over 28.5 receiving yards right now at Caesars. That's my favorite bet of the game. I think we're going to go after him. He got 5 targets on just 16 snaps last week. He's clearly a part of the offense. I think we're going right for Tony early and often. Might even be worth the first touchdown sprinkle.
Yeah, he was, even last year, they were forcing him targets. Ever since they acquired him, they make sure he gets the ball in space to see what he can do with it. So, he's always going to be a factor if he's out there. Look, I just got to say this too. If I see more short yardage antics this week, I'm gonna be so hot you could fry an egg on my face or something. Yeah. I can't imagine telling someone in emergency, like, go call 911, and instead they draw one of those signs out front of it, like a mattress store, where they're like spinning it like crazy, and it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, spinning and shaking and moving and like just move to fall forward. I'm trying not to be profane in this family-friendly pregame show, but I'm telling you, I was like so livid last week at the end of that game, just thinking, stop being cute. We've had a full week. We had reporters pressing him going, why do you do this? Why do you do this? Explain your short yardage. Andy does the typical coach speak about it. This week, I would almost feel okay with the loss. I don't want to say I'm okay with the loss, but I'd almost feel okay with the loss if they would at least allow Patrick Mahomes a quarterback sneak just to like, okay, guys, we're going to do it. I'd feel much better about the whole season if we could solve that. So if I see that garbage come up again, I'm going to be a different man this week. Something's going to be.
So you don't want to see Blake Bell out there dressed as the Statue of Liberty spinning a sign in the back. Okay, well, hear me out. What if instead of using like Blake Bell and we like offensive linemen and stuff in short yardage situations, they start using Blake Bell in like 3rd and long. So you get like Blake Bell in there at quarterback, and he's throwing passes to like Creed Humphrey, who reports in as eligible. Like, what do you think?
We had plays last week where Blake Bell was a primary read. And I'm thinking, I mean, again, I'm like, what the hell what are we doing? Is this preseason game 4 or is this game 1? I mean, look, man, I'm not worried about this game because last week we lost by only 1 to a good team. And we shot ourselves in the foot 30 ways. It wasn't even just Tony drops. It was like asinine coaching. So, yeah.
And I think that honestly, with that Patrick Mahomes quarterback sneak, man, that's like a guaranteed first down because nobody's going to believe that they're going to do it. So maybe Andy's just keeping that in his pocket for a really, really crucial play because he's going to go out there. And I mean, I don't know, man. All right. Listen, we got to get out of here. The game's going to start in 5 minutes. Quick final score predictions, Joe.
34-27.
34-27. All right. I assume you're picking the Chiefs.
Chiefs. Yes, Chiefs.
Yes. Connor?
30-17. Chiefs.
Wow. Oh, very confident. I love it.
Respect for Lawrence.
Patrick Mahomes playing angry today. I think it's going to be closer than we would like. I think the Chiefs are going to win. I'm going to go Chiefs 27, Jaguars 21 in this one. All right, look, ArrowheadAddict.com during the game. Make sure you're following the Twitter account. And then we'll be back here at halftime for the Arrowhead Addict Chiefs halftime show. And, of course, after the game for our Chiefs post-game show. For Matt Connor, for Joe Summers, for producer Richard, thank you for joining us. We'll see you at halftime. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.